heavy with beauty, your Moorish dark face contrasted with your bejeweled citrine and yellow treasures. The wind forces you to whisper your death secrets to me. Restless and wise, you show me how to let go of the beautiful, each breath taken high and grace-filled. Why does life burst into vivid color just as it's about to let go of everything? This season is full of gifts. Even beautiful things die with dignity. Hello, self-lovers. Welcome to another installment of Conversations with a Love Activist. Now, that is a poem I wrote during autumn when I went on a much-needed walk and grounding session in nature. I had received some disappointing news, and I used the walk as a way to fill the well, as the artist's way says. And this poem, looking at the beautiful burst of color that comes with the autumn season. Autumn is my favorite color. I genuinely love transitions, not when they're happening to me, but I love witnessing transitions, whether it's a sunset or seasons moving from one to the other. So autumn is my favorite season, and this poem emerged right as I was processing some disappointing news. So as I think I've mentioned this, yes I have, that beauty is one of my highest values. And by beauty I don't mean aesthetics, I mean soul-stirring anything, whether it's a conversation, whether it's a painting, whether it's a piece of clothing that makes you feel good, whether it's renovating your space, whatever moves your soul, to me is beauty. And poetry has been a huge gift in my grieving process. The beauty that it has allowed me to access even when my heart is breaking. So these couple of weeks we've been dealing with as a reminder, Ubuntu, true Ubuntu says, I'm interconnected, interrelated, interdependent on all that is. And so for the past 4 weeks, we've been dealing with the interdependent part of Ubuntu. And that has taken us down some really great rabbit holes, exploring relational quantum entanglement. What is this called? Interbeing, which is a beautiful way of being by the Buddhists, that says that the poet has to thank the cloud, because without the cloud there wouldn't be paper for the poet to express themselves. And so showcasing or showing that we inter-exist, and that the relationship between things is the only thing that's actually real. And so because we are interdependent, my healing is your healing. You depend on me to heal, to grow, to experience joy, because then I make joy, growth, and healing more accessible to the collective quantum field that we're all a part of. So now it's a new season in South Africa, or in the Southern Hemisphere. We are entering winter officially now. Today is the 1st of June. Well, not officially, but we are in winter season, and we'll be dealing with the interrelated part of Ubuntu. So let me read to you what interrelated, the actual dictionary meaning of interrelated. Where am I? To be interrelated means that two or more things are connected in such a way that their influence depend on or have an effect on one another. When elements are interrelated, a change or event affecting one often causes a ripple effect that affects the others. I almost have this picture when I picture interrelated or interrelation. Think of a string that creates a triangle. When I pull one side of the string, it affects the shape of these 2 points, and whichever point I pull at, it affects the other 2 points. And so interrelated is literally the relationship between, in which we have, learned previously that in relational quantum mechanics, it talks about that there aren't two isolated atoms, elements, people, but that the relationship in between is where things are happening. That in relation with one another is where change, growth, love, fill in the blanks actually happens. And so it's another great image that you can have that can really cement the idea of interrelatedness as it relates to Ubuntu. I like the onomatopoeia, however you say it, is the mycelial network. So the mycelial network is a network created by fungi underground. It's the internet of the forest, basically, the internet of nature. And trees use the mycelial network to communicate with one another. When a tree is sick, other trees will send nutrients through the mycelial network to that tree, water and resources to that tree. And so these two different elements, fungi and tree, because fungi is not a plant, it's fungi, it's its own thing, because they're able to interrelate with one another, are able to thrive and show up as their most authentic selves, essentially. So, like I always say, and I'll have to read this, everything is entangled with everything else. You cannot isolate anything. When we choose fear, it ripples out. And when you choose love, that also ripples out. And that's taken from my previous Substack, actually. So this is why I love Ubuntu so much, because it helps us to leverage the truth of our interconnectedness, that we are entangled whether we like it or not. And so how can I use my self-love as a gift to the collective? And that's what we've been, this is what this whole channel is about, is that your self-love isn't yours. It's not something private, because we're interconnected. As you heal, as you thrive, as you grow, as you grieve, it benefits, it benefits all of us. So, we don't consider winter as the sacred time it actually is. And when we usually think about winter, we try to run away from winter, we try to escape it. People go to warmer climates so that they don't have to experience winter. But winter is a sacred time of endarkenment, using the slow, dark, coldness of the season to regenerate, to slow it down. I almost call it the parasympathetic season. It's a time of digesting, of processing, so that in springtime you have the energy and the resources, the inner resources, to grow and to do what you do in in springtime. So I'm going to read a little bit around the definition of wintering. Wintering is an actual activity that people do. So wintering is the act of spending the cold winter months in a specific place, typically to seek warmth or shelter. Metaphorically, though, or spiritually, it means taking a period of rest, withdrawal, and self-reflection during a challenging or dark season in your life to heal, recharge, and prepare for future growth. So let me speak for myself. I don't typically like to sit in the muck. I don't typically like to sit in the murky emotions that I may be experiencing. I'm a skip to the good part type of girl. But I don't realize that when I do that, I'm also robbing myself of future joy. And you could literally see wintering as a time of sacred grief. I had the privilege many years ago to do a sacred grief course with Gogo Sophia, who is a womb priestess and a spiritual doula, during COVID, when we were all faced with grief but didn't have the tools to grieve because we live in a grief-phobic society. And one of the biggest things that stayed with me in doing that sacred grief course was that we need grief. A time of grief is a time to tend to our inner waters, and to see those primordial waters within us, our emotions, as needing that sacred witness and honoring, number one. Number two, what I realized, or what stuck with me during this sacred grief course, is that when we don't process grief, what happens to us on a psychological level, ungrieved grief hardens our hearts and dehumanizes us to ourselves. And so when we run away from, hard emotions, or don't properly utilize, sacred endarkenment, we don't realize that we're slowly dehumanizing ourselves to our own selves. So last year, we don't honor grief, or use grief for all the benefits it actually can give us. And last year I had to close my business after 15 years of providing inclusion, Ubuntu, love-filled storytelling to clients from all over the world. And I was very intentional about grieving and taking the time to grieve, and actually even learning about grief. As much as I had done the sacred grief process, I am very fortunate to be in business with my best friend, and so we really held each other and supported each other through the grieving process of having to let go of our business that we love so much. And at the time, Kutlwana, my business partner, sent me what's this incredible podcast by Anderson Cooper called All There Is, which basically he shares his own journey with grieving not just his mom, but his older brother and his father as well, as being the only one left behind. And he shares the stories of celebrities and ordinary people going through grief. And the biggest takeaway that I have listened to copious amounts of hours, I've listened to 95% of the episodes that are through 3 seasons, I think. And the one thread that is common throughout is that, first of all, grief is not something to get over, because grief is love with nowhere to go. Grief is a signal that you loved something. What an honor, what a gift, what a privilege to have loved and had that experience of being loved and loving. And so grief reminds us that we are human beings. It's the one equalizer across across class, across race, across gender. Grief, heartbreak is heartbreak. It doesn't have it's not less heartbreaking when you lose something when you're a billionaire, as when you're are not. Loss is loss, and loss is part of the human experience. And that really brought me back from woe is me, victim kind of thinking that was really tempting to step into, not even tempting, that I had stepped into and step out of and step into and stepped out of why me? Why do I have to close my business? Why did I have to fail? Why am I having to experience this? It took me from that siloed, isolated, almost narcissistic, I would call it. As you've heard, I call the ego the biggest narcissist. But anyway, the ego has its own gifts to give. It took me from that isolated place to feeling like I'm really interrelated with the people whose stories I'm listening to, people who've lost sons and spouses and parents, and how that heartbreak is universal and is the reason why we're able to experience beauty and joy. And it's how, in the grieving process, is how I understood the importance of beauty in my own life as part of my healing, as part of my healing process. And so one of the biggest things that grief has taught me, and there's a temptation to, trivialize or compare grief. That no, you can't compare closing a business to losing a child or a spouse. You cannot make those comparisons. But loss is loss. Heartbreak is heartbreak, and the temptation to trivialize our experiences is part of distancing ourselves from our own emotions, and is a form of self-loathing. And remember, that self-loathing is then what? Made available into the collective. So the reason why grief is so sacred, and the reason why grief is so important, is because of the space it creates, is because of the resilience it creates, is because of the joy it allows us to experience. One of my favorite interviews, I ended up watching this incredible documentary about Andrea Gibson, who was a famous American poet who struggled with ovarian cancer, and they lost that struggle last year. And their beautiful, beautiful wife was talking about, the experience of, anticipatory grief, but also not experiencing anticipatory grief, experiencing everything as it was happening, not grieving Andrea before Andrea was gone, which was very powerful. But one of the beautiful things that Andrea taught me is they would get really bad news, that their markers are all the way down, that they're really, really sick, basically. And they would sit in it, literally go, everybody shut up, sit in it. And then a radical acceptance would wash over them. And they say that once they accept that, okay, so I am sick. That is what is happening right now. They said that then all the sweetness would trickle in once they accepted where they were at that moment. Not what this would mean, or projecting a particular meaning to that a diagnosis, but being in the present moment, right here and right now. And that is one of the biggest gifts of interrelatedness. Because of them sharing their experience, I was so connected to them. I was able to relate to their experience, and they were able to be, a huge teacher in don't waste time saying, why me? What's happening is what's happening. You're having to close your business. That's what's happening right now. Accept what's happening. Be present. Be in relationship with the present moment right now, so that you can, let the sweetness and the beauty actually start to wash over you and trickle in and enrich, enrich your life. So, having to grieve my business that I had held on to like white knuckled for 15 years allowed me to see that, the worst thing in relation to my business has happened, but I'm still here. I'm still here. So I can afford to hold things lightly, or I can start to learn to loosen the grip, not just around business, but around life, around living. I can afford to have more faith in the beauty and the joy and the wellness that undergirds life. So another way that this has been made very real for me. So I had the beautiful privilege of manifesting a sacred retreat, a sacred creative retreat for myself at the beginning of the year. Ended up in Cape Town in these it's a whole other it's a whole other video that I'll have to share. But the whole purpose of the creative retreat was to actually heal and grieve and supply myself with the inner resources to build a future that I didn't know, basically. And so it was very, a big part of the retreat was being immersed in nature, because nature is designed to regulate our nervous system. So I'm so grateful to finding Sonia through TikTok, synchronicity things. And on this particular day, we were spending time with trees. So I'd spent time with the ocean the previous day, and this day we were spending time with trees. And the first place she took me to was this pond at a beautiful botanical gardens in Somerset. And as part of the retreat, she had given me a shell and a pearl for each place I was going to go to, and I was to leave the shell and the pearl in spaces that spoke to me, so that whenever I needed to, I could call back and pull energetically myself into that space and pull on that interrelatedness between me and that particular space. So this particular pond, didn't have a lot of water. Because in Cape Town, the rains only happen now in winter. And so it had water, and then it transitioned into mud and then water again. And so I start the walk around this deck where the pond is encased in or surrounded in. And I'm like, I know Pearl and Shell, you want to go in the water. And they go, nope, we want to go in the mud. I'm like, I'm not going to listen to you guys. And I continued to walk around and do the exercise that Sonia had given me. Then I get to where the water transitions into mud. And I go, so really, really, you guys want to be left here in the mud? And the Pearl and the Shell say, yes, we do. I'm like, okay, why? Tell me why. And they say to me that, or my guides say to me, what I don't understand about mud is that mud holds so much nutrients. It's dense and rich with nutrients. And so when you're in the mud, when that frog is buried in that mud, it's consistently fed because of all the nutrients that the mud is full of. And so instead of seeing mud as something that I can be stuck in, how about I change my view to mud being something that is something that can feed me, is something that can be sacred medicine. That endarkenment, that seed that's dug deep into that soil is able to sprout because of the nutrients and the medicine that are present in that dark, slow, still space. And so I saw, lilies only grow in mud. And lilies are a sign of in darkenment, but also enlightenment. They are a symbol of enlightenment, but that enlightenment only happens because of the nutrients that's in the mud, that only happen in the what is seen as filth and unclean. That's where enlightenment has the energy to sprout, because of what the mud can provide. And so this is what endarkenment, this is what grief can gift us with, if we surrender ourselves into it. And so this time has been for the first time in my life, I don't have a business to build, and I have to build a career, a new orientation to my career, and co-build. Another thing that I love about interrelatedness is that it also speaks to us as relatives. So us as human beings as relatives, but us as relatives to nature, us as relatives even to the things we create. And when you think of something as your relative, it takes on a different importance, or a different position in your life. When I look at nature as part of my family, I know that nature is something I can lean on for when I'm unstable and I'm wobbly. In fact, that the same day on the sacred retreat, after we left the botanical gardens, then Sonia took me to a second location where it was a vineyard that it used to be a vineyard that got turned into a garden. And in this garden, this year they had planted sunflowers. So it's like acres and acres of beautiful sunflowers. And as we're walking through the sunflowers, a group of two ladies come to us and say, "Oh, these flowers are dying. They're not as pretty as the flowers up ahead." And then, for some reason, it made me really look at these sunflowers, and what I saw was, beauty in the death process, because a sunflower seeds come from the center of the sunflower, and as these sunflowers are dying, they're letting go of hundreds of seeds. And right then and there, my guide said to me, without this sunflower letting go, there can be no future sunflowers, there can be no future there can be no future growth without having to let go of the sunflowers into the soil, into the mud, for them to start and restart the cycle of life. And it was such a beautiful picture of the grieving process, what the grieving process does for us. It allows space for us to let go and allow those seeds to fall into that rich soil, into that mud, so that when springtime comes about, they've been tended to, they've been loved on, they've been cared for, and they now have the inner resources to sprout in the springtime. And so come back, and I'm looking for employment, I'm looking for a job, and I get 2 interviews, and in 1 week I get both rejections of those interviews. And my husband Quentin observes me processing these rejections, and he's like, it doesn't seem like you are processing just these 2 rejections. It seems like it's seems way heavier. The way that you are speaking, it's as though you haven't let go of all the rejected proposals, all the no's you got from applications you sent out. All of those are now present in this moment because you haven't let them go. And so I don't know what you're going to do, but it's now making this moment unnecessarily heavy, and you're not able to see the beauty in this moment. You got what you wanted. You said you want to go to where you're sent, and so these no's are because that is not where you were sent. And so it reminded me of, oh yes, I actually have to forgive. I have to grieve all those losses. I have to grieve all my creative stillborns that never got to see the light of day, because if I'm going to drag them, I'm not going to be able to create another life. And on that same day, literally on that same, the next day when I'm like, okay, I'm going to, instead of trying to get over all of this in one jump, I'm going to take the step-by-step work that presencing demands for me to be able to let go slowly of the heartbreak, so that my heart doesn't harden, so that I don't dehumanize myself to myself. And so the next day, I was literally, when I do my morning pages, what's this? I listen to a playlist, but then I make it smart shuffle so that I can hear other songs. And this song came about. I'd never heard this song, and these are the lyrics of the song. You see rhythms in failure and success, and appreciation and rejection and all that. You want things to go well, but you survive things. It makes it a little easier, and it's interesting. Something will happen. Something will be learned. Something will happen. Something will be learned. And that was such a beautiful example of what happens when you decide to surrender into the soil and soften. And the biggest thing that I was having to process is the shame. That was the biggest thing that was keeping me holding on to all the rejections and to all the hurt. In fact, it was one of the reasons we had one of our biggest fights with Quentin, because at the beginning of the year, he's like, okay, you've gone through your grief process. Now it's time to jump back in. And I was so, I literally had a mini panic attack about the thought of going back in, putting myself out there and being rejected, and not being able to handle the shame of being unwanted, in inverted commas. Brene Brown defines shame in such a beautiful way. Shame is the fear of disconnection. The fear that something I've done or failed to do makes me unworthy of being connected. And I'm one of my core needs is connection. So that shame of replaying or reenacting or giving people reasons to be disconnected from me felt really, really hard to actually stomach. And having to look at shame in the face and really question where this shame is coming from. Is it true? Is it true that I am something bad? Because that's what shame is. Guilt says I've done something bad. Shame says I am something bad. And so if I'm feeling shame, it's because I am believing in false narratives about myself, that I am unworthy, that I am not enough. And because we're interrelated, those false narratives are being magnified, that the quantum field around me of unworthiness is then going to join with the quantum field of other people who are experiencing or believing that they are unworthy, and we magnify that lie with our focus on, that we are shameful things. Processing shame has been a really important part of the slow steps towards, releasing whatever's in the way of me interrelating with all that is in the most authentic way. And so learning to let go has been a really important process. I was fortunate enough to bump into a beautiful podcast episode with Karen Cogan, who is a shaman, a doula, and a filmmaker. So basically me, but an older Israeli woman. And she speaks about the unshaming way. And the unshaming way is a process that she takes people through of learning how to live your life in a practice of devotion and devoting your life to what it is now, accepting your life as it is now, not just what you wish it to be. Let me read to you what the actual meaning or the root word of devotion is. The root word of devotion is the Latin verb devolvare, to vow or to dedicate. And we've been, in these past couple of weeks, we've been talking about what does it mean to make a vow and a commitment to yourself, and the actions. Hence, it's a verb. To devote is to take action towards honoring something, your life, and keeping to the vow you've made, to keep on honoring something. And so the unshaming way is all about letting go of the shame, basically, so that you can devote yourself to your life as it is now. And part of that is taking your life to the altar. And taking your life to the altar is a really potent act, because you're saying whatever needs to die so that my life can thrive and grow, I'm bringing it to the altar. I'm surrendering it into the mud so that it can turn into nutrients, so that it can turn into compost that will help me to reach my highest, my highest potential. And so for me, that has been a lot of the time. We live in the future. When this happens, then I'll be. When I have more money, I'll be happier. Whatever the case is. But what that does is that it constantly defers hope into the future. Whereas then devoting yourself to your life as it is right now, practicing radical acceptance and appreciation for where your life is, gives you the fuel to be able to build and to take risks and to put yourself out there, even though there's a risk of you getting rejected over and over again. And so she makes a beautiful analogy, for example, where she says, what if we've been taught that in this life, what we're all gunning to do is to get our feet onto the surfboard and ride the wave. But what if in this life you never get your feet on the surfboard? What do you do then? And my guide said to me in answer to that is that, well, if I'm on a surfboard on my back, what I can do is enjoy the beauty and the view from where I am. I can see, appreciate the water beneath me, the sky above me. I can appreciate the view from where I am. And learning the unshaming way is about appreciating your life as it is, enjoying the view from where you are, deep presencing for and appreciation for your life, so that we can leverage the gifts of interrelatedness, and we can access what is available in the collective for us to live our most joyous lives today, not tomorrow. So I will leave you with this. This is the question that we'll be kind of sitting with this week. Name one thing you're willing to let die. One thing you're putting into the mud, and not as a failure, but as a compost. So for me, what I'm willing to let die is shame. I'm willing to put shame on the altar and to accept that I am not something bad, that I am made out of love, I am made out of pure goodness, that joy is my inheritance, that living a creative life that I enjoy is why I came. So I am willing to let I'm willing to let shame die in that mud and become compost for my future joy. Share with me in the comments what you are putting into the altar in this time of death and devotion, so that we can build the inner resources we need to leverage interrelatedness in this self-love journey. Because remember, this is all about the fact that your self-love is my self-love, and that interrelatedness allows me to be nourished by you and for you to be nourished by me. So I love you. Have an incredible week, devoting yourself to yourself, sticking to the commitment you made and the vow you made to yourself in the past weeks that we've been working together, so that you can live the life that you deserve, that we all deserve. I love you.